Hello, my name is Jeff Jamiolo, and today I'm going to talk about the tale of two economies. I was actually glad to hear today that the banking system is starting to get more biblical in their thinking, which they should, because oddly enough, it is actually a sin to actually lend money with interest, by the way, in case you weren't aware. Just like you're not supposed to do that forever either, because in the book of, I believe it is Deuteronomy, it actually says in there that every 7 years you're supposed to have a jubilee and your debts are supposed to be forgiven. But they kind of forget about that. And if I remember correctly, that's what got the Vatican in trouble, because they're all for usury, charging everyone interest. So they made a deal with the devil a long time ago. Regardless, the economies I'm talking about is God's economy and man's economy. And you may say, well, there's only one economy. Well, no, there's not. One involves compassion, one involves greed. I'm not saying all of man's economy is greedy, but it's real close to being greedy. I look at it very simply. God's economy is more along the lines of, if a loaf of bread costs $1 to manufacture, you should charge $1.25 or so. And the current economy, well, if it costs $1, that means we should charge $4 or $5 for it. And it's a problem because there's excessive greed in there. There's nothing wrong with making money. Even the Lord will tell you to make money, because when you make money, you spend money. When you spend money, you give away money. And it all comes all the way back around. Now the problem is generally people who make excessive profits kind of cursing themselves. Let's briefly talk for a second about cursed money. There's many ways you can curse money. Usually, always a good classic is stealing someone's inheritance, paying to have someone killed. Any money that proceeds, that comes from that, any money that's exchanged, is considered cursed. And it's not just cursed for the person who had it, who ordered the hit or stole something. It's also for the people that they spend money on with. Example is say I decide I want to go over and I accept money for killing somebody. So I go over and I accept this $1 million. Okay, so now I'm cursed. Now I take this $1 million, I also buy a house with it. So now I buy this house is now cursed, plus the money that I just gave this person that came out of my cursed money is now cursed, still cursed, and it just keeps going through the entire economy that way. It's bad money. Could any number of reasons you can have money that's cursed. Someone could have died, from a drug deal. That's always a popular one too. Kidnapped kids, kidnapped adults. Stolen inheritance is always a good one. Sometimes I wonder how lawyers even still can live. But regardless, that's cursed money. And there's really no way to clean cursed money. If I remember correctly, only way to uncurse money per se is to give it, all of it away, that all the money you have, to a noble cause. And you see that a lot, like in the Ford foundations and stuff like that. Not saying that there's dirty money there or evil money there, but there seems to be a lot of foundations that they want to do things with. Rich people like to do. Example is, actually a real good example is the Winchester family. The reason I know about this is because I went to a trip with my wife when I was married to Thousand Islands. And there's a Winchester castle there. And it's a multi-million-dollar castle built with modern technology, but they built it because they were cursed. Because every Winchester round that killed somebody now at this point has a curse on their money. So at this point, anyone who makes a rifle round, Remington rifle round, or Winchester rifle round, my apologies, they were cursed. So their entire existence, they were cursed. And anything they bought, cursed. Anything they gave the money away was cursed. I said, so it's very hard to kind of squirrel that kind of money away. But I would like to, I did want to talk about that, about cursed money, because it's such thing. It's like you hear from, if for some reason someone stole my inheritance and basically wanted to cut me a check, here you go, I wouldn't accept it. Unless it comes from a court, I don't want to touch it, because you don't know where that money's been. Did you kidnap a child and get this money? Did you, sell some drugs? The courts look for that kind of thing to make sure it wasn't illegal what you did. And that's the point. The goal of the God's economy is to actually clean all this up. As I said, there's a lot of dirty money in the economy. And it's not just any kind of counterfeit stuff. I'm just talking stuff that's beyond dirty. I said, as much as I pick on rich people, a lot of poor people actually have a lot of dirty money too. And it goes from family member to family member, dirty money. And that's a problem, because we want to go from a greedy economy like we have now to one with compassion. As I said, I suspect that the economy going forward, we're going to slowly drift to a so much above cost economy. Reason is it actually kind of does something funny. If I'm selling a loaf of bread for $1.25, okay, really no one wants to compete in that arena because you're only making 25 cent profit. But when you start making $2 or $3, now everyone wants to be involved, and everyone starts cutting costs and everything else. That's what got a lot of people in trouble, especially with China. Everyone exported everyone's job. Everything we used to make in America, all gone. We exported it all to China. We said, okay, we can make it cheaper there. That's great. You made it cheaper there, but you never passed the savings to us. So we still paid like it was being made, with union wages, but it was being paid by slave labor in China. That's a problem, because the people that got rich are the investors, and they walked away, took the money, laughed, and walked away. And literally, whoever's holding the bag on that, I do believe that karma is coming for the people who've done that, by the way. I do believe that they're getting hit with their own karma for that. I suspect you'll see people trying to clean their money up. Just like, as I said, it's very creepy. The whole concept of dirty money is bad. But realistically, you think about it, everyone talks about how Bitcoin could be used for nefarious actions. I go, heck, look at your dollar. The dollar has been used for nefarious actions for years. The U.S. government dumps off $100 million at a time to pay people off in foreign countries on pallets. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the Treasury doesn't know it's gone. I said it's very quirky of pot calling the kettle black when our own government kind of does shady stuff all the time. Anyway, I look at the tale of two economies as being very simple. Everyone wants, for lack of a better name, let's call it the Star Trek world, where everything is fair, everything is at peace. Now you watch the shows, everyone knows their role. There's no, real ego games in there, really. You don't see a lot of that. Everyone just knows their job, and no one's really concerned about money. And then you look at today and say, well, how do we get there from here? Well, that's a problem. There's a lot of things you got to blow up. I do mean blow up. I said, a lot of people have a lot of money, don't want to part with it. And they do all kinds of nefarious things with it. But regardless, we'll eventually get into space and eventually travel around. I suspect we've already been there. If you look at the secret space programs and those various other programs that are kind of hinting that they're out there, it makes you think they're not out there. Pay attention, people. But I see nothing wrong with the Star Trek economy and the Star Trek world. This means we need an adjustment. And when I mean an adjustment, any adjustment we do is actually considered catastrophic. There's a reason why there's not 100% adoption of solar. There's a reason there's not, we just don't dump gasoline vehicles. It's not actually feasible. We could stop in a year. We can get rid of all gas vehicles. It also means your economy, you have a 60 to 80% unemployment rate because everything is tied into that. So you have to replace those jobs somewhere. And that's a problem. It's actually the same problem AI has. AI is gonna remove a lot of people's jobs. The problem is these people's jobs that they're removing, what are they gonna do? Oopsie. Now you got massive unemployment, which means overthrow the government. I said it's a very delicate web that they weave. And one of those is very simple. It's what do you do with too many people? One faction, the death cult, says, hey, let's just kill them off. Big Pharma's been doing that for years. Generally, the medical system, other than an emergency room visit, everything else is considered it wants to kill you. Natural medicine is out the door. But the good news is, in God's economy, that's all coming back. Natural medicine. Heaven forbid we go back to what actually used to be before we started putting oil down our throat. By the way, Big Pharma, biggest source of oil right there in your pills. I'd also like to talk about a very interesting story. This goes back years. I actually learned this in an accounting class. It was actually about the story of Kmart and Walmart. Kmart, ooh, flash from the past. Ooh, that's big 80s there. Kmart used to be a chain store like Walmart. Big box. Been around for years. No one thought it would ever go anywhere. Then the young kid came in, the Walmart popped up. And what it did was it sold everything at 25% above cost. It did two things. It drove mom and pop businesses out of business because they can't compete with 25%. Plus, Walmart buys them in, quantities of 1 million, so you can't really compete with that. When you go up purely against cost, mom and pops can't compete with that. So mom and pops had to compete the only place they could, and that was literally customer service because Walmart never had it. So literally, eventually, Walmart got rid of all the competition, including Kmart. And Kmart used to keep stuff forever. Like they'd buy 1 million of things, and they'd sell that thing for 20 years. You go and you buy some gift wrap, and it would be literally like 5 or 6 years old. Is the manufacturing date. And next year, Christmas, they have the same pattern. Is they just warehoused it all. Now, eventually, Kmart went out. And Walmart was like, yes. And then what did they do? Immediately right after that, whatever the price the market will bear. And that's why you go there today. All kinds of garbage out there right now. You see these rollback, what do they call them? Rollback specials, which means they're overcharging you. And no one is buying their product. To the point where Walmart may actually go out of business because they can't get people to actually populate their stores. The only thing they could actually get the people to come, get stuff delivered is stuff from overseas that literally is pennies on the dollar. They make a lot of profit off of it. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of theft, but hey, when you're only paying 4 or 5 cents for a $20 document or a $20 garment you're selling, hey. But that's the point. There's a lot of slave labor in that. So eventually it's all going to come back around. And don't get me wrong, Amazon is no different, technically. Amazon basically just moved the marketplace to somewhere else. And most Prime users aren't real happy with Prime because now their screw up means you have to pay to get your stuff shipped back. And it costs actually more than usually the product that you actually went and bought. So not everyone's real thrilled with Prime right now. But regardless, the economy is slowly moving in the right direction. And that's the good news. And I think it's good news because we want to get to the Star Trek economy. Oddly enough, it's a rough call because if you actually take out Star Trek, If you've never seen an episode, you may want to go see one. It's pretty interesting. It seemed pretty organized. It did. Don't get me wrong. It did kind of seem a little socialistic or even communistic. However, once you focus it off to roles, and at that point you got skill levels in roles, well, naturally that's the way it works anywhere. It's just a lot less bureaucracy. And that's what I like to see, a lot less bureaucracy. Just like right now, as I said, it's just, I have a feeling this country is in for a treat. I think the world is in for a treat. Because we're going to have a lot of unemployment. If you look at what good or bad, when you look at what they're doing with the federal government of paring down all this waste. This waste's been there for 30, 40 years. People 40 years ago were whining about the waste. Problem is no one wanted to do anything about it, but now God said, oh, you need to fix it now. So I got better uses for that money. And by the way, anyone who was part of that nefarious thing, I'm pretty sure should go to jail. Or at the very least, they're dealing with cursed money. And generally anyone, it's kind of like big pharma sometimes. Anyone who, there's been cancer cures out there for years that they've been covered up. But anyone who dies from cancer at this point, that basically, that karma goes on one of the CEOs for the big pharma. Maybe you should feel like the person, who had to do your chemo feel. Yeah, well, wish we had a cure that would fix that. So I suspect that karma's not going to be very nice to them. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care if it's nice to them or not. I believe a lot of people deserve what they deserve. I do believe government officials generally should be honest. If they're not, they should not be in the public trust. And if I remember correctly, there was a law that says, and it's a felony to be in violation of the public trust. So you do something shady, and you work for the government or you work in a public corporation, you are no longer eligible to be in a public organization or in a government, or you're actually classified as a felon, which means you can't own a business, you can't travel, you can't do. So all the good things you like to do, you can't do no more. You just may not be in jail, but you technically should be. But regardless, I do wish that we're going to get there. I know we're going to get there. It just takes a while. I see the underpinnings now, and it really looks good. Eventually, we're going to have to be either part of BRICS, or we're going to eventually go into a gold standard. And people are going to have just a cow over that. They're not going to be happy. One day you're going to wake up with $1 million, the next day you're going to wake up with $300 in the bank. You don't know where it all went. It's because it was devalued, but now that $300 is worth something. That will scare people. People, if you think the Great Depression was bad, wait till that happens. And speaking of the Great Depression, you look at it from the other perspective of, is it the government's responsibility to keep you, safe from, cradle to grave? The answer is no. I didn't see that in the, Bill of Rights. Government protection, the government's supposed to protect you, but it's not supposed to take care of you for the rest of your whole life. You have the right for your own freedom, your own happiness. We gotta start finding that. That's all I wanted to talk about. Talk about the two economies. As I said, obviously the one economy has to go, and a lot of money is being flushed out and cleaned out. And that's, like I said, that's a good thing. We need to clean out this money, and it's not just domestically; it's also internationally too. We deal with a lot of bad people, and really these people shouldn't be there. But it's not my judgment call to say that. Example is some country wants to have an overthrow of their government, kill everybody. Hey, the government, you get the government that you want. So if the people want that government, want it gone, let it gone. I believe the same thing for America. One day we're going to end up revolting. We want it all gone. And I believe that is the scary line that we're currently on, is that how long is the government going to last? Because I do believe that there are some rumors running around that if you actually knew who corrupt the government really was, you'd want a rebellion now. But the powers that be, the Lord above, want us to do it a different way. No, let's not do an insurrection. Let's piece this away piece by piece. And I trust God. And I strongly encourage you to also. Doesn't mean it's not going to be painful in the process, because we're going to learn things. We're going to learn why we shouldn't trust people. Or some people anyway. Why we should put more faith in God than people. Wait till you find out that there's people that have never worked a day in their life and they've been getting benefits for like 4 generations. Wait till you find out there's politicians who get 3 different forms of retirement. And you can't make your rent. Remember that. Anyway, I do believe all this is a good thing. So, thank you for listening. Have a great day.